Hello and welcome to the Goldfish Village podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Mercer, also a realtor with Premier Chicago Real Estate. You can check me out at www.listwithmercer.com or watch some of our episodes at www.goldfishvillage.com. Today, we got a special guest, man. We got a special guest. It was so hard to get on this lady's calendar. Y'all just don't understand. All the way from LA by way of Philly. I mean, she come from a family that owns real estate, mixed use property all up and down Philly. Went to Loyola College in Maryland, slept on her brother's couch for 9 months. Started Airbnb just to make extra bread. Now she's in LA, living for free. Owns a duplex, also an ADU. We're gonna get into what ADUs are. And right now she's actually transitioning to go into real estate full time. So I thought that she was really intriguing because I don't really meet many people that can afford or have a multi-unit in LA. And we all know LA real estate is super expensive. And I really like her story. But without further ado, Jasmin Connor, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, man. So let's get into it, man. You had an Airbnb for 6 months.
Yeah.
On the low.
On the low.
Before the landlord shut it down.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when I moved to LA back in 2015. I knew I wanted to buy property, but I didn't know how to afford it. And so I moved here without a job, and I was working for an entrepreneur for about 6 months, and I was sleeping on my brother's couch, right? And I was modeling, doing some modeling stuff and some extra work, just kind of exploring different things. And after about 6 months, the job that I was working, it kind of didn't pan out. So basically, like, I wasn't getting paid my stipends. So I ended up accumulating some credit card debt, about $30,000 in credit card debt.
Wait, you got $30,000 in debt just from, over how long a period of time?
So it started out where, I was getting the checks every, couple weeks. And then it was, I got to get you, can you just take care of some things this week and then I'll get you next week, right? And then it would be a piece, like a portion of the check, and then there would be a promise for it to be next week, right? So that just kept happening over a while. And at that time, like, I was living off of my credit cards. Wow. So accumulating just regular living expenses on my credit cards while also not getting paid. So
financing a cheeseburger over 20 years, still paying for that cheeseburger. Damn.
You know what I mean? Like, and I knew I wanted to buy property. So, it was like, and I came to LA without credit card debt. I had paid it all off, I got my credit score up, and now I'm right back in the same position that I started. So I was like, I got to go back to work. So I went back to work as a designer, as a UX designer at Kaiser. And so I was working, and I was, back to making good money, but I still wanted to buy a home. And so the money that I was making was paying off my credit cards, but I don't like to do anything slow. And like, once I have a vision, like, I like to get on it. And so, I've been hearing about AirbNbs and how people were doing it in LA. And my boyfriend at the time was really discouraging to that. He was like, no, you don't want to do an Airbnb. Like, people are going to be in your place. You don't want people all in your place. But my gut was telling me, like, this would be a way to make extra money to really tackle this debt. I had over $100,000 in student loan debt and also this credit card debt. And I'm trying to buy a house. How? So long story short, we ended up breaking up. And then when I was, it was just me, I was like, it's time. It's time to make this happen. And so I ended up looking for a place to move because I was in a 1-bedroom apartment. And so I couldn't really do Airbnb and stay there. I didn't have any place else to go when I was renting it out. So I was like, I have to find another apartment to live in. and it needs to be affordable. It needs to be like $800, right? But it also needs to be safe, and it needs to be nice, right? And it needs to have parking, right? So like even that is like, how am I gonna find that in LA? But that's what I needed to find. Long story short, I ended up finding an apartment that was in Northridge, that was in the a back unit of somebody's house. And when I went to check it out, it was already furnished. It had a bed, it had a mattress, it had a closet, and it had this little, there was no kitchen, right? Just a microwave and a crock pot. And I ended up renting that unit. It was $800. It was in like this suburb of Northridge, you know, and I told him, I was like, I want to buy a house, and I'm not bringing any of my furniture here, you know, because I need to set my apartment up as an Airbnb. And so I wasn't planning to have a TV or a dining table, any of that, right? Because the goal was to save money. He ended up saying, no problem, like, I'll get a TV for you, like, I'll get a table for you, right? Like, I love what you're doing, like, we can make this work. So I stayed there, ran the Airbnb. I did the cleaning myself for a while.
So the place that you was Airbnb and you left it furnished already?
I left it furnished. So I was living there for about maybe a year before I started the Airbnb. And so I had it already furnished, you know, and I kind of had the Airbnb in mind. So as I was furnishing it to be, you know, comfortable, not only for myself, but thinking if I ever rent this out, you know, comfortable and, you know, spacious and, you know, all of that. So I wanted to I just left all the furniture there, and I just moved myself so that I could just start the Airbnb right away.
So how long, so when you put it on Airbnb's website, how did you know how much to charge?
I researched a while before. So I looked at other Airbnbs in the area, right? So you know how you go on Airbnb and you could enter in the place that you're trying to travel to. So that's what I did. At the time I was living in, the apartment was in North Hollywood. So I went in, I put in North Hollywood to see what other Airbnbs were in the area and what did they look like and how much were they charging. I based my price off of that.
So how much was your monthly rent at
the time was $10.95.
Okay.
And then I had about another $150 to $200 in utilities. So like cable at the time, water, electric, gas, that type of thing.
And how much were you able to gross with the Airbnb?
So the highest that I brought in, I believe, was like $2,200 one month, $2,300 a month. So that left me with like $1,000 profit.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of modest for some, but for me, that money was going directly to my credit cards to pay it off.
That was like a big aha moment, like, wow, man, let's get it.
Yeah.
Light bulb went off.
Yes. I was like, I work backwards from goals. And so I had, like I want to say, I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it was around 30,000 in credit card debt that I wanted to pay off in like 6 months. Right. And so I did 30,000 divided by 6 months. And that's how much extra I needed to make each month to accelerate this payoff of these credit cards.
How long did it, like when you put it on Airbnb, how long did it take somebody to be interested in your spot?
It wasn't long. It may have been less than a week.
How much of a cut does Airbnb take?
They take, what's their percentage? I don't remember their exact percentage. They do take a percentage, right? But they'll show you when you set it up, they'll show you the percentage that they're going to take and how much you're going to make at the end, right?
So you weren't worried about nobody like stealing your stuff or nothing like that?
No, what's great about Airbnb is they have a great like help center. And so if there's any damage to any of the items that's in your home or in your Airbnb, you can file a complaint or file a ticket, right, about what was damaged, how much it costs, and then they'll reimburse you for that. They'll charge, in some cases, they will charge the guests And in other cases, then I don't know where that money comes from, right? But they'll reimburse you for it.
Ah, okay. So when you were, what about staging? Like, did you take into consideration like how your place has to look, like in terms of like pictures and stuff? Like what did you do to kind of make sure that you had a quick turnaround time to rent it out?
Yeah, so I thought about who I wanted my guests to be, right? So I was doing monthly stays, right? So I needed a guest that was comfortable, that came in and that just felt comfortable, right? Ideally, it was either couples or individuals who were in between housing or traveling professionals, right? And I wanted it to feel homey, and it was a really small spot, and so I didn't want it to feel cramped. I wanted it to be someplace that I, like to live, right? Which is I am the person I had in mind initially, right? As a user experience designer, I think this is kind of where that experience came into play. I'm always thinking about what people will do in the home, right? Or in a space. So at the area, if it's a living room area, I'm thinking about, okay, what would be happening here? They might be watching TV, right? Like, so I'm placing the furniture so that it is easy to converse and easy to see the television, right? If it's a small space, I'm making sure that the furniture isn't too large, right? Because too large of furniture in a small space will make it feel like cluttered, right? So I'm making sure that the furniture is sized well. They're going to want to eat, you know what I mean? So I'm making sure that there are wine glasses and regular glasses and plates and cups. If they want to cook, I'm making sure that there's enough pots and pans, just like the basic stuff to be able to cook. Towels. I researched how to do linens, right? And like how many to have. So what I found is you want to have 3 sets of towels and washcloths for per bedroom, right? You want to be mindful of how much you leave out, right? So like if I left I think I saw online one time, like whatever you leave out is going to get used. So if you leave a whole case of toilet paper in the cabinet or a whole case of paper towels in the cabinet, the people are going to use it, right? And so I had to how many to put out.
So with Airbnb, like anything that's in the house is like fair game. Is it like, can you say, hey, like, do you leave clothes behind too? Or do you have to pack those up?
No, I took all of my clothes with me to the other apartment. And the only thing I left behind were things that guests can use, right? And anything that is available and accessible may be used. You can say and put in your listing that you don't want them to use it, but how can you manage that, right? You can't really control it. So I don't know if you've ever been in an Airbnb, but sometimes if you stay in an Airbnb, you'll find that there's some cabinets that are locked. And that's the reason why, like there's stuff in there.
Okay.
That
makes sense. That makes sense. So what about when they leave and cleaning? Are you the one that has to stuck with cleaning it?
Yeah, so I started out cleaning it myself because I'm trying to save money and make the most profit, right? So I still charge the cleaning fee for the amount that I would have paid a cleaner. And it was basically just paying myself, right? And so
how passive is Airbnb? Like, is it work? Like, are they calling? Like, if you're doing having a tenant that's been in there for a month, like, are they hitting you up weekly, or is it just like totally hands off?
Mine was mostly hands off. My first guest stayed for about 2 months. Started out with 1 month, and then they kept extending their stay. I think they wanted to stay a third, and I ended up having to end it, which we could talk about if we need to. But they didn't really need much from me. Like I left a lot of instructions in the Airbnb listing for them. I think initially they may have had a question about laundry. Another time they had a question about parking, but other than that, they just kind of existed, and flowed and treated it like their home. The one thing that I learned though from doing monthly stays is sometimes people don't clean. And so my plan initially was to only clean at the end of the stay, right? And so for this particular couple, because they extended their stay like an additional month, I didn't get in there until month 2, right? And when I went in, there were stains on the countertops. There was like, you know, dust will just build up in the corners of the floor. There was crumbs everywhere, you know, like there was just stuff everywhere because they didn't really clean. And so I said, after that, I'm going to make it a requirement that every 2 weeks there's a cleaner that comes in if there's monthly stays.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
So how did you get, so tell me how, like what happened when the landlord found out, and how did the landlord find out? Like walk me through that whole process and what that experience was like.
So I was traveling for work. I was in Oakland at the time, and I had a guest that was a young lady that was checking in, right, while I was out of town. And so on Airbnb, you can add a co-host to your listing, right? And so I had a friend of mine as the co-host. So she had me, and she was going to meet my guest in order to let her in to the unit, right? Because this wasn't my, because I didn't own the place and because I wasn't supposed to be doing Airbnb, I couldn't leave a lockbox anywhere on the property. So I had to do manual key handoffs, right? So she was going to let her in. And when the guest ended up arriving early, it was at nighttime. She got there early before my co-host arrived. And so when she got there, she buzzed the manager on the buzzer. So the manager comes to the gate and she says, "Hi, I'm here for an Airbnb." And the manager was like, we don't have any Airbnbs here.
Oh, damn.
And she was like, "Yeah, it's apartment 7. Her name is Jasmin. I've been talking to her. I'm supposed to be staying for a week." Like just blew my whole cover. And right as she was talking to the manager, my co-host arrived and called me and was like, no, she didn't call me. The manager called me first. Right. And so the manager called and said, "Jasmin, do you have an Airbnb? Are you running an Airbnb?" And I was like,
"She was like, habla no inglés."
Right, like I'm trying not to incriminate myself. So I'm like, what do you mean? And so she's like, "There's someone standing here saying that she's here for an Airbnb." And I said, "Oh, she's just staying in my unit for a while, you know, like my friend is coming there to let her in, etc." And so she's like, "Well, she just showed me your Airbnb listing on the app, and that's not allowed here. Like she can't stay here." And I'm like, oh, like panicking on the inside, but trying to stay calm. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, no problem." And she's like, "I'm gonna have to like report this. Like she can't stay here. This is not allowed. She has to stay someplace else." And so I said,
Damn,
okay.
So they would let her stay?
They would not let her stay.
Wow.
And it's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I should have just waited." But she was nervous. It was late at night. She was traveling by herself. And she was outside. So that's how it happened. And I thought that because I've been such a great tenant that they would just let me pass. And when I the next day, when I came home, I think I came home the next day or 2 days later, I had a 3-day notice to vacate the premises.
Damn, a 3-day notice to vacate?
3 days.
That's what they own?
All of my furniture in 3 days.
Dang, kicked you to the curb, man. So did you get in trouble with Airbnb?
No.
Oh, so she didn't trip. Damn.
No, she just told the owners of the property. And we had a good relationship. And so she said, you know, if there was another tenant that saw the whole interaction, she was like, "If I would let you pass, you know, you've been great. You never give me any problems. But because there was a witness here, if they tell the owners that, and I didn't report it, then I could lose my job." So I was like, you know, I get it. But, you know, I felt like it was supposed to happen that way because I had said to myself, I'm going to give this a shot for 6 months and see what happens. And at the 6-month mark, I had paid off all my credit card debt. And I was like, well, I'll just keep it going, you know, and just stack some more money. I even started to save, like to accumulate a savings.
Mhm.
And so I was like, I'll just keep it going and see, you know, how long I can make money. And right then, that 6-month mark is when it was shut down. And so I was like, well, I guess it's a sign. I said 6 months. I did it for 6 months, and now it's time
And so
to.
now you, after that 6 months, you got to pay bread to get all that stuff out, and you put it what in your new spot?
No, I was living in like this small studio, right? Like there was no space for any of that. So I ended up having to get storage. I had to get a storage unit and move everything into storage and then figure out what the next move was.
So why put yourself through this? I mean, you in LA, you by yourself. Like that's a lot. I mean, why would you put yourself through all of that?
To buy a multifamily home in Los Angeles.
So,
I had
but that had to be a devastating blow to your plans, though. I mean, how do you recover from getting a 3-day notice and being a single Black woman in LA? Like, I mean, did you have any help? Like, what did you do how did you land back on your feet?
Yeah, so it wasn't a devastating blow, only because I had already reached my financial goal. You know, the financial goal at the time was to pay off my credit card debt and to start saving for a home, right? And so by that time, I had done that. I had made the money in order to pay off my credit card debt, and I was positioned financially to be able to buy a house. To me, what was devastating, obviously, was not being able to keep it going. But I guess the silver lining was me being able to, you know, being positioned to buy a home. I did have help in moving the stuff. My brother lived in a unit right across from me. He actually had started his own Airbnb after seeing my success with it. Yeah.
But what about the ex-boyfriend? You call him, he ain't help you?
No.
Oh
No,
man,
I called my friend.
he ain't nowhere to be found, huh?
He was nowhere to be found. I called my friend Eb, and I can't remember who else. I think Eb and her wife Nat came and helped me pack up and move. My brother helped me pack up and move. And so I just had to move real fast, you know. Like I remember being at work when I was trying to move everything because I had another work trip. So I didn't even have 3 days. I only had 2 days because I had to fly out again for work. But that's when your tribe comes in, you know, like I feel blessed to have people here that will come and help and support when I need it. And so that's what it was. I was already living in another apartment. So
I feel like a lot of people would have folded right then. I mean, you talking about you working for an entrepreneur, your money ain't coming in right, sleeping on your brother's couch for 9 months, you know, racked up all this debt, this credit card debt. Then you finally see some light, so you move in, you find an $800 space, which is small. It's like 100 square feet, and you just got a mattress, and then you rent out this other spot, you know what I'm saying, trying to hustle up a G a month, and then you got this ex-boyfriend, he ain't supporting the vision, you know, like where that hustler mentality, where that mentality come from?
You're right. You know, my family, my grandma, I think came from my.
You better not give up, baby.
Listen, you know, like I think I've come from a family of really strong, determined men and women, especially the women, right? And so like we don't look at it's like as you're saying this, I don't even know if I processed all of the negative, right? I was only focused on the goal. You know, so it was like, all right, boom, that's not working out, gotta pivot. Boom, that's not working out, gotta pivot, gotta get to this. Got to keep moving. Cool. Like I still got to show up for work. I don't have time to be crying over moving out of this unit. You know, I got to keep
time for that, huh?
I ain't got time. Like I got to keep it moving. I'm trying to get this house. I had started going to meetups to learn about like, you know, network and figure out, you know, so I'm only focused on moving forward.
Trust the process, as they say in Philly.
That's it.
Process.
That's
so
it.
Fast forward to now, you live in LA for free. How you doing that? Because man, I got homies out there in LA. They got 1,200 square foot cribs paying 600 grand. Like, how you living for free? Tell me how you did this. What type of loan? What's up, man? Talk to me.
All right, so when I started looking, I knew I wanted a multifamily home. And I needed a place. I needed a place for me and my brother to live. Because
why not just get a condo? Why not just get a condo?
No, so I am my brother's keeper, right? Like I am the oldest, right? Both of us were living in LA, and he kept going with his Airbnb and also ended up getting kicked out.
Wait, so the brother was he doing an illegal Airbnb too?
Yes, at the same.
Oh man. Let me find out the Connor family, man, the Connor cartel, man.
Yes. Wait, and get this, it was at the same apartment complex.
You lying.
I'm dead serious. We lived.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So he got kicked out, but he didn't necessarily have a backup plan, right? Mm-hmm. So he just out here staying on his friend's, like staying at his friend's house. And so we ended up, so I'm like, I gotta find a place not only for me, but also for my brother, right? But also go for most.
Preach now.
Huh?
I said preach now.
Yeah, right. The other goal though is to have an income property, right? Like I could go and get a condo, but then that's not generating income for me, right? Like I need a place to stay, and I also need a place that's generating income. If I get a multifamily, I can live in one unit, right? While the other units pay for the mortgage. So trying to accumulate wealth, my whole thing is how do I keep reducing my expenses? One of the biggest expenses that you have in LA is your living expenses, usually your rent, right? And so I had to find a way to reduce my expenses and continue to increase my income. We can't just do one, right? Like you can't just reduce your living expenses or just increase your income. I was trying to do both. So that's multifamily.
Wow. So what year was this you got the multifamily?
This was 2018 is when I got to
2018. So I would assume that 2018, did you have 2 years of consistent income at that point?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes,
so was you working at Google or Kaiser or which one?
I was at Kaiser at the time.
Okay. Yep. So you're making that bag. She's
so
making that Kaiser bag. Okay. Had to rebound for that entrepreneurship stuff. So you making that Kaiser bag. And at the same time, you got the knowledge. So the light bulb don't went off in your head like, yo, grandma, uncle said, yo, man, get you a property out there. We done taught you how to do this.
They never told me that, like
really?
No one thought that I could get a property in LA, right? It's not that they thought that I couldn't, but everyone that I talked to about it was like, LA is so expensive. Like, are you sure? It's okay if you don't, right? Like that type of thing. Or it was like, okay, that's nice, Jazz, right? Like that type of response. So, but the drive was, I knew I could do it.
So you in LA, you get it, you looking for multi-units. What's important to you? Is it more so like I want to find a property that lives in the right neighborhood? Is it more so like I want to find something like a cash flow? I'm trying to where I could be safe. Like what is a priority in terms of like as a single Black woman? It ain't like you from LA. So it's one thing to be like in the hood, but you from there. It's another thing to be in the hood, you 3,000 miles away from the crib. Like what were you prioritizing when you were looking for these multi-units?
Yeah, so cash flow was important to me. Number one, right? Like I need this to be something that is that I'm making a profit from or generating income from. Being in a good neighborhood was really important too, a safe neighborhood, because I'm living here, right? I wasn't buying the property as an investor. I was buying it as owner occupied, right? So I need to be someplace that I also feel comfortable coming back home to. It also needed to be pretty turnkey. I started out thinking that I wanted a fixer, but as I started to look at fixers, I realized that I didn't feel comfortable living in a fixer and fixing it up at the same time, especially not for my first property. So it to be a place that I could move into without having to do like flooring or painting or, a lot of work to it.
Wow. Okay. And how
then
was all of this on your social life though?
what's that?
How was all of this on your social life? Like, with you being a go-getter and with you really sacrificing your living situation, because you probably could have had more amenities and whatnot, but it seems like you had this idea in your head and you was willing to sacrifice. How was that on you, like, socially?
So I was living in Northridge during this, like, the sacrifice year. And that's pretty far from, anything, LA, Hollywood, where a lot of things are happening. Mm-hmm. And so it was challenging because nobody likes to come out to Northridge, like it's very far. And if I was invited to things, it took a while to get there, like it was at least 40 to 50 minutes to get to something that was happening in Glendale or in the Valley, etc. Luckily though, I had some really good girlfriends who will come over, or I will go to their house, and I feel like I still did have a good social life. Like I put myself on a budget, and so while I was sacrificing in my living arrangement, there still was opportunity to go out to eat. Like I made sure I had a good enough budget for that, because I like to be able to go out and have a good time brunch, and to take a local trip like once a month. So driving to, I think that year, me and a friend went to the Grand Canyon. And we went to Santa Barbara, right? Like I started to explore, her idea actually, I started to explore areas locally. So it wasn't like a lot of expenses for airfare and stuff like that, but I still had the opportunity to get out of the house, and do. My brother's a musician. And so whenever he had a show, that was something to do, and he'll put me on the list so I could go to a show, et cetera, and not spend a lot of money there too.
Okay,
so
that's dope.
To live in a box, I had a little bit extra expense for going out.
Okay, that's important. So you're looking for a multi-unit. What type of what are multi-units costing that in your sweet spot that makes sense? Like what price range are you looking at?
So I had to look in South LA. That's the only area where there were multifamilies that were under $1 million. And so mine was listed at 650, right? At the time, others, that was the range that I was in. It was 650, 700. If I could find
considered like a bargain? Like, ooh, 650.
Yeah, that's considered good. It was considered good at the time. For me, it was like, oh my God, what? Right? I'm from Philly. We don't have multifamilies that cost 650, right? It's more in the 2 to 4 range, even below that. So I was very nervous, but luckily my realtor was able to kind of level set with me and give me a sense of how much properties were going for. So the ones that were at 400, 450 range, those were fixer uppers. And the ones that were like more move-in ready was in the $600,000 to $800,000 range.
Wow. So, and yours is what, 3 units or 2?
Mine is 2 units plus a bonus room, that ADU that you referenced at the beginning of the call.
And what's an ADU? What exactly is an ADU?
The ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. So
does that have like a kitchen, a bathroom?
Yes. Okay. So it'll have a kitchen, a bathroom, and a living space, right? So space enough for a bedroom. They could be as small as a studio. They could be as large as a 2-bedroom apartment.
Got you. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. So in terms of a loan, like what type of loan did you get? Like, was it FHA, conventional?
Yeah, I did a FHA loan. Multifamily homes that are less than 4 units, so 4 units or less, are still considered like residential. It's not commercial. So I was able to do an owner-occupied FHA loan. This was my first loan, so I only had to put 3% down. Maybe I put 4% down.
Okay. 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 So that's 4% down. So
Yeah.
that's good. So you kind of getting in, without with putting like around 20, let's say 25 grand
Yeah.
down, and which is still a lot of money. But for LA, that's like, thank you, Lord. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yes.
So you getting in there, and let's say your mortgage is probably about, damn, your mortgage is probably like around 4 grand, if
Yeah.
I'm doing that right. All right. So now are you calculating like, okay, I'm gonna charge, like, are you looking at what they charging for rents in the area?
Yeah, that was something that I talked to my realtor about, right? And so he kind of gave me some guidance on how much they were charging in the area. This particular unit already had a tenant in it, right? And so I had to inherit a tenant. In LA, if you want, and I'm not sure how it is in other states, but if you're buying a building with a tenant in it, you would have to pay them to leave if you wanted that unit to be vacant, right?
Uh-huh.
And it, as much as like $10,000 or more.
Whoa.
Right. So my stipulations were I had to have at least 2 units free, one for myself and one for my brother. And so this one just happened to have, it had, I think they ended up kicking someone out for me because they had both units filled by the time I signed the contract. Right.
Wow.
They kicked one out and they had already, the one that they kept leasing, they were already renting to them at $1,850.
Whoa.
So that was my baseline. They're already renting one of the units at $1,850. That's what I'm gonna start the next rent in. It just made sense. And then I moved into the ADU.
And you moved into the ADU.
More sacrifice.
Hey, but hey, that sacrifice is real though. My first building, man, I lived in a basement for 10 years, but for the first 6 months, I didn't even have a kitchen. I just had a bathroom and an air mattress, but
Yep.
I understood the big picture. I was like, hey, I'm living here for free. I got privacy. I'll worry about everything else later. You know what I'm saying? Like, I already knew I'm ahead of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I could stay in someplace nicer, but what's 6 months? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
At the end of the day, when I'm trying to get millions here,
Exactly. I'm focused on the bigger picture. My spot in Northridge did not have a kitchen. I was using a crock pot and I met
the spot that you was Airbnb in?
No, the spot that I lived in while I was Airbnb in the other apartment.
Right. Okay.
Did not have a kitchen. So I was using a crock pot and I met a young Black girl who was a chef. She had just moved to LA and she was trying to expand her business. And so I paid her to do meal prep for me. And that helped keep me budget. And she delivered
that African energy, boy. What tribe you from? You bartering with everybody. You got that energy. You was like, yo, you gonna do meal prep? We gonna do this. I'm gonna get your website popping. Like all that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it worked out. You know what I mean? Like I needed to put myself on a eating budget, and I didn't have a kitchen to cook. So you cook, I pay, I stay on the budget.
Damn. So you get the crib.
Yep.
And now you kind of like staying for free, give or take, probably like a couple $100, but it ain't nothing crazy. It's like, all right, I'm comfortable. My check from work, I'm putting in my pocket. I'm not stressing over like paying $2,000 or $4,000 a month. What does that feel like when you like? What does it feel like for you to be from Philly, go to school all the way on the East Coast, move to LA, not knowing nobody. Now you got a situation where you own a crib, you living for free, been through everything you've been through. How did it feel to get the keys?
I mean, I can get emotional. I can't even describe the feeling, right? Like it was something that I wanted for a long time. I had started trying to buy property back in Philly and it just wasn't working out. And I was wholesaling, it wasn't working out, right?
Man, taking L's.
Yeah.
Taking L's. And you still ain't give up.
It didn't just happen. Yeah, I had been trying,
You moved out in LA. What year you moved in LA?
I moved to LA in 2015.
And then you bought the crib when?
2018.
Man.
March of 20.
Man, look at God.
Look at God. That's how it was. So it felt amazing to get a property that had outdoor space, right? And that's also rare, right? To have a place that my brother can stay. I had experienced people having to leave LA the whole year prior because rents were going up. Landlords were kicking people out, right? And I'm like, want neither my brother and I to have to leave because rent is too high. Like, I need to control that. You know, so a place my brother could stay, to have a place that I could stay, to reduce my living expenses. I was tired. You know, I was like, I feel like I'm going to need a break too at some point. So I need to be in a position where if I need to take off, I can take off and not have to worry about rent or mortgage, you know? So it felt amazing. It felt amazing.
And then we go through the pandemic. You
Yeah.
bought it in 2018.
Yeah.
We see astronomical appreciation.
Yeah.
LA already expensive.
Yeah.
You bought the crib for $650. It's close to say it's probably worth $1 million.
No. I did not buy it for $650. It was listed at $650. I had it appraised. It appraised for $600, and I told them I would not pay a penny over $600. And so I ended up getting it for $600.
That's dope. And so now it's probably worth at least 900, $1 million. You know what I'm saying? Just because of the housing shortage and everything else that we went through over this last 2 years. So when you look back at that journey, because you had people that was like naysayers and you had to really step out on faith. I mean, now, I mean, what type of tenants, are you still Airbnb-ing? What type of tenants do you have in there now?
So I've moved on up into the 2-bedroom apartment. So the duplex, both sides have 2-bed, 1.5 bath. I live in one of the sides of the duplex, the 2-bed, 1.5 bath. My other tenants are a family. They don't know that I'm the landlord, but they're a family of, there's a husband and wife, there's 2 kids, and then the husband's brother lives there. And then the back unit, the ADU, I have a friend that rents from me month to month.
So how do they not know that you're the landlord? Tell me, like, how do you pull that off?
So I got some, I sought out some advice before I bought the property, since I was going to be living in it. I'm a young woman. I was 33 at the time, you know, not from LA. And I got advice from another Black landlord, female landlord, who recommended to not share that information. And so when I moved in here, I said that I was the property manager. And so that they could come to me if they had any questions, et cetera. And if they had questions that I didn't have an immediate answer for, I would say, let me talk to the landlord and get back to you. And I did that because I wanted to create some space for myself. Like, I knew that there would be a lot that I didn't know. I needed space to be able to go and research the answer or figure it out, you know, and not feel the pressure of being the person, you know. I also wanted to get their authentic reactions, right? So if they were frustrated about a thing, it's easier for them to say, why isn't there a hose here? Or why isn't this, you know, they'll say that to me. So then I know what I need to pivot as if I was the landlord. Man,
so now you're a full-fledged businesswoman. You in it. I mean, you got the Airbnb experience, you got tenants, you got outdoor space. The light bulb at this point is all the way off. And then, you know, we all landlords got blessed this year when in terms of appreciation. Now, some people, you know, did have tenants that weren't paying rent. Did you go through that at all, where a tenant wasn't paying rent?
I had tenants that were behind on rent, that were not paying. So I have
how you handle stuff like that?
So at the end of 2020, I was working for Google. I had moved back here to LA. I was working for Google and managing this place by myself, and it became a lot. And so I ended up hiring a property manager, which, you know, many people wouldn't do if they're just doing, you know, just units, right? But it was a lot for me. So I property manager, and they have been helpful in negotiations about late rent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's dope. Now, what if you found out one of your tenants was Airbnb? How would you handle
Oh, I never thought about that
that?
question. So, I think there's a
Like, I feel you.
right,
However,
right. Man, there's part of me that will want to work out a deal, right? I like win-win situations. So maybe I would figure out a lease agreement where they would pay a higher rent, right? And be allowed to Airbnb, but they would be responsible for certain things. Like if there's damage that's done, they would be responsible to the walls, right? To the floors, like you would be responsible for paying that. And I would have to get some type of kickback or like higher rent as a result of it.
I feel you. So
Yeah.
your tenants that you have now, did you bring these tenants in yourself, or were they holdovers? I mean, were they people that were already there when you bought the place?
Yeah, the tenant, the family that's on the other side of the duplex, I inherited them. They were here when I bought the place. They've been here for, almost 5 years now. And they've been great. The tenant that is in the back unit, she's a friend. And so when I moved up here, I was planning to Airbnb that unit. And she happened to be in town, needed a place to stay for a week. And so I was like, yeah, you can, stay back there for a week. I was about to put it on Airbnb anyway. And that week has turned into almost 6 months.
Wow. So the ADU, how much are you able to rent that out for?
$2,000.
Damn. And then the other unit, how much are you able to rent that out for?
So that unit is $1,975. Okay. It's a little lower because this is rent control, right? I'm in a rent control area. So I can only raise the rent a maximum of 3% per year. Yeah.
You said that's that. Like, damn.
What'd you say?
I said you got that memorized.
Yeah.
But look, let's say you getting 2,000 and then 1975. So if we multiply that times the 4 years you don't own the place, that's $190,000 that they have poured into your net worth. When I say a number like that to you, I mean, I ain't saying this. We know that it's not 100% passive and it ain't easy, but this is 190 grand that they've given towards your net worth, towards your lifestyle over a 4-year period. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, like they're paying my mortgage.
Yeah. That's
nuts.
That's nuts. And this is only the beginning, right?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I'm actively looking for places now. In LA, I'm looking for another place to Airbnb near Inglewood to capitalize off of the new stadium being there. And also looking for another investment property. I actually met with a realtor yesterday, and he's going to be sending me some fixer-uppers. I might get into the flip business and start, flipping houses. I wanted to do that for a while, and seeing how much flippers are making off of not even doing great work and using subpar materials. I know I could get in there and create something nice.
That's what's up, man. So what advice would you have for someone that's, with similar background as you, that might be kind of scared, but really has this vision, but they don't know how to get started? Like what, they want to get a multi-unit, or they want to move to LA or some other place, and they want to get into real estate. What advice do you have for somebody?
I think first of all, you have to start surrounding yourself with it, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean physically with, other people who are in it, because that might not be possible. But one of the things that was really helpful for me was websites and podcasts like Bigger Pockets, or going to YouTube and finding other investors that have podcasts. Listening to other people's stories and the different challenges they've worked around, or how they've house hacked like I'm doing, right? It helps to get you creative and to see the opportunities and the various challenges that'll come up in your path. And it'll start to give you ideas on, okay, maybe I want to be in this city, or maybe I want this type of property, right? So that would be the biggest thing. Just start learning about it, start listening to other people's stories, and then a plan will start to materialize.
I love it, man. So what's next for you, Jasmin?
So I want to get my real estate license at this point. I love helping people, but I also just love real estate. I like going to open houses. I like seeing properties. And I would just love to help more people get their first property, especially our people. So I'm studying for my real estate license. I also would like more properties of my own. And so I am actively looking for the next investment. And I'll probably add a couple Airbnbs as well.
I love it. I love it, man. Jasmin, you've been a great guest. I learned so much. Story is so inspirational, man. Anything you need, let me know. I got you. I'm looking forward to witnessing the journey. And to watch the rest of this show or watch any other shows, make sure you go to www.goldfishvillage.com. If you're looking for help with a multi-unit, single family, want to sell your home, holla at your boy. Call me 773-426-1626, or just go to www.listwithmercer.com, man. Thanks, Jasmin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure.